everyone, and welcome to the 7th edition of Translating Strategy into Performance Management with Technology on this beautiful last Monday of August 2025. August 25, 2025. Wow, 25, 8, 25 or 8, 25, 25, depending on where you are joining us from. Thank you very much for being here with us. How have you been? Hope you've had a wonderful month of August thus far, and hope you are pursuing the implementation of your strategic objectives keenly, accurately, precisely, with strategic precision, which is the whole essence of this program. This program is supposed to help to ensure that required alignment between the goals the organization sets at the strategic level and the activities that are taking place at the lower levels of the organization. My name is Tolu Umurara, and I'm very glad to welcome you warmly to Amogekiru Communications, as well as my program, Translating Strategy into Performance Management with Technology. How are you doing? It's been a great time. It's been a great month. It's been a great cut thus far. And like I said, we are glad and grateful to be coming to the last Monday of this month, even as we take the 7th edition of the program. So, like we always do, let's do a quick recap of what we shared last week. Remember last week, if you were with us, was devoted to using technology to connect strategic planning with performance planning. I repeat, using technology to connect strategic planning with performance planning. Now, the whole essence of doing this, if you remember, is to ensure that the strategic management cycle is connected with the performance management cycle. I repeat, the whole essence of doing this is to ensure that the strategic management cycle is connected with the performance management cycle. Now, Amoge's strategic management cycle is the PIMA cycle, where P stands for planning, I stands for implementation, M stands for monitoring, E represents evaluation, and R stands for revision, right? That's the PIMA cycle. And that should be connected with the Amoge Performance Management PIMA cycle, right? Where P stands for planning as well, which also is about contracting. E stands for execution, M is for monitoring, A is for assessment, and R is for rewards and consequences. To translate strategy into performance management is about connecting cycle to cycle, and every aspect of the strategic management cycle should be effectively connected with the performance management cycle. That way you will ensure that you're not just setting strategic goals, but they are actually getting implemented, right? So using technology to connect strategic planning with performance planning is about connecting the first part of the PIMA cycle, the strategic management cycle, to the PIMA cycle, that's performance management cycle, right? So like we said last week, TSIPM, translating strategy into performance management, means connecting every part of the PIMA strategic management cycle with the PIMA performance management cycle, whether or not you're using technology, but technology makes it faster, technology makes it more efficient, right? So the performance plans of the entire organization, like we said, should be connected with the strategic plans, right? You're not just connecting the planning process of the strategic management cycle with the the strategic planning process with the performance planning process. You're also connecting the strategic plans with the performance plans. In other words, it's one thing to connect process to process, it's another thing to connect output with output. So not just connecting the strategic planning process of the organization to the performance planning process, you're also connecting the strategic plan, which is an output of the strategic planning process, with the performance plans, which should be the output of the performance planning process, right? So like we said, this is about ensuring that you're distilling the strategic themes of the organization, which is one of the critical starting points of the strategic planning process. You must ensure that the strategic themes are connected with the performance themes of the organization, and strategic themes must be linked to performance themes with technology, right? Using something like a digital tree diagram, amongst other things, right? Now this is very, very critical because clarity is power, visibility enhances clarity, and technology helps to increase visibility. I'm going to say that again. This is important because clarity is power, visibility enhances clarity, and technology helps you increase visibility. So sometimes you can think, for instance, that you have connected certain strategic themes sufficiently with performance themes, but they may be, those strategic themes may be under or overrepresented, right, under or over captured in the performance themes. But when you use technology and use something like a digital diagram tree or a digital tree diagram, like a pattern, to show it, it's easier to have that clarity you need to quickly recognize whether there is underrepresentation of some strategic themes in the performance themes, or overrepresentation, or maybe even complete non-representation of strategic themes into performance themes, right? So technology will help you quickly see which strategic themes and performance themes have been connected, right? Beyond knowing they're overrepresented or underrepresented, strategic themes are overrepresented or underrepresented. Technology also helps you to see the points of connection, which strategic themes are connected with which performance themes, because like you said, they may not necessarily, those performance themes may not necessarily get the same name, even though they derive from certain strategic themes, because they will mean different things. The same strategic theme will mean different things across different organizations. So it's very important that your organization deploys technology to ensure appropriate distribution of strategic themes across the organization's performance themes. I will repeat that. It's very important that the organization uses technology to ensure appropriate distribution of strategic themes across the organization's performance themes, right? We want to know which departments, divisions, units, individual roles have responsibility for which strategic goals, right? I also want to differentiate the ones that have responsibility for setting goals from the ones that only have accountability, right? We want to distinguish the ones that only have responsibility from those that actually have accountability. In other words, they oversee the ones that have responsibility. You can do this, also, of course, using technology, using things like color codes, legends. All of these things will help you to do it in a much more efficient and enhanced manner. Technology facilitates that. You also want to differentiate the weights, right? The weight, for instance, of roles with responsibility will be less than the weight of roles with accountability. So technology will help you to quickly see the weights of different entities using those tools like color codes, legends, etc. Again, like we said, and we keep saying, technology brings this visibility. Visibility will increase clarity, and clarity will enhance power. Very, very important. Well, I think this is where we're going to stop in terms of a recap of what we shared last week. There are many other things. Kindly subscribe to Amalgate Radio Communications YouTube page. There's a lot to be gotten from it. There's a lot to be learned from it. Please subscribe to Amalgate Radio Communications YouTube page. Follow Amalgate. That way you get prompted immediately when we have different programs, and we have rich and robust programs from Mondays all the way through Fridays, right? I'll also enjoy you, even if you have listened to this program, especially if you're an organizational leader and institutional leader. Please go back and listen to these programs again. It helps to go back and understand the power that comes, first of all, by connecting strategy with performance management, and that's largely the power of follow through, the power of implementation, right? But now connecting strategy with performance management with technology definitely enhances the benefits, right? Helps you to follow through more easily, because it will show top level leaders, for instance, through those digital tools, all the lower level reporting entities with accountability and responsibility for different aspects of the strategic goals, as well as other things that we will be talking about today. Once again, you are very welcome to this edition, the 7th edition of Translating Strategy and Performance Management with Technology on Amalgate Radio Communications. My name remains Tolu Mbera, and we will now be going into the main theme or the thrust of today. So today we are looking at, remember I've talked about beginning to hint at follow through and beginning to hint at implementation. Today we want to look at connecting strategy with performance, connecting strategy evaluation with performance evaluation through technology. I repeat that. We want to look at connecting strategy evaluation with performance evaluation using technology. We've looked at connecting monitoring of the strategy implementation with monitoring of the performance plans implementation. In other words, connecting the monitoring of the strategic goals, how well the strategic goals of the organization have been implemented, connecting that to monitoring the implementation of the execution of the performance plans of the different levels of the organization, right? In other words, connecting the M of the strategic management timer cycle, like planning, implementation, monitoring, execution, and revision, right? Planning, implementation, monitoring, evaluation, and revision. That's the final cycle, right? You have to plan your strategy, you have to implement your strategy, you must monitor the strategy, you must evaluate after monitoring, and then you also want to make the necessary revisions. That's the primer cycle. Then there's the PIMA cycle, like I said, where you have to plan, you have to execute, monitor, assess, and ensure that you reward performance goals that are met. But one thing is to connect the monitoring to the monitoring. Another thing is to connect the planning with the planning. We looked at connecting the monitoring of the strategic goals, right? That's monitoring the implementation of the strategic goals with monitoring the execution of the performance objectives. We looked at that 2 weeks ago. Last week we looked at monitoring the planning, right, of the strategy, the strategic planning, the P of the strategic planning's timer cycle, with connecting that planning with the planning of the performance goals. Now this week we want to look at the evaluation, because the reason why you evaluate is to bring more concrete feedback, right? You may want to look at monitoring, because we want to say, so what's the difference between monitoring and evaluation? Monitoring is more ongoing, and evaluation is more concrete, is more definite, right? So if you are in a term or a semester, as it may be, and you have a performance monitoring session with your professor or your supervisor, he or she is giving feedback. This is how you need to grow, this is where you need to grow, this is where you're having challenges, and so on and so forth. That is the monitoring. But after the end of the semester, or after the end of the term, as the case may be, the professor who is a performance evaluator then gives a grade. So monitoring is more transitory, and it is still very, very important, because like we said 2 weeks ago, there are certain things you want to catch early, and you want to quickly bring prompt revision, prompt changes where necessary. You don't want to leave things to the last minute, right? Especially where changes can still be made. And that's why we often make the case for monitoring to be done midline, right? Baseline being the beginning of the performance period, endline being the end of the performance period, and the midline is midway into the performance period, where changes can still be made, right? Now, but having done all of the monitoring and giving all of the performance coaching, eventually the time comes when you must give the evaluation, right, which is more of a closing feedback, right? While monitoring is a feedback, a midterm feedback, evaluation is an end-term feedback. Is that at the end of the performance period, you have to say, this person has done exceedingly well, this person has exceeded targets, different languages can be used, this person has exceeded targets, this person has met targets, for instance, this person has failed to meet targets, and this person has failed significantly in meeting the targets, right? Now, again, we want to make sure that as much as possible, feedback is based on the metrics that were set in the beginning, and this is where technology begins to come in again, because at the beginning, during the performance planning and strategic planning process, you should have clear indicators of where you want to be as an organization. If your goals are revenue goals, you want to, for instance, say you want to increase by 20%, you want to increase by X number of dollars, you want to increase, if your goal is customer reach, if that's the strategic objective, you want to say we have increased our customer base by X percentage or X number. All of those things are strategic goals, and then you want to share those metrics as well, again in clear terms, specific, observable, and measurable terms. Very, very important. You want to share those things in specific, observable, and measurable terms across different roles of the organization. But the connection is the strategic objectives that you're cascading to the performance objectives of different divisions, different departments, different units, and different roles of the organization, ensuring that there is you're connecting goals for goals. In other words, goals at the strategic level with performance goals at the lower levels using technology. Now, when it comes to evaluation, like I said, it is those specific, observable, and measurable goals that also will be evaluated, not just monitored, but they'll be evaluated, but will be measured, right? They will be measured based on the feedback, based on the specific, observable, and measurable feedback that should tie with the specific, observable, and measurable metrics. I'm going to say that again. They will be measured, right? The specific, observable, and measurable objectives that were set at the planning stage would be measured with specific observable and measurable metrics, that should be evidenced, because at that point, like I said, you are also ensuring objectivity and fairness. Very, very important. So because you have done your best as an organization to bring specificity, which we have emphasized a lot on this program, because you have done your best to bring specificity to the planning process, to the metrics that were set in doing the evaluation, you should use those same specific measures. Very important. You may want to say, so what does that do to the qualitative feedback? After all, we've been saying on this program that there must be quantitative and qualitative feedback. Yes, the qualitative feedback states the why, right? But the quantitative feedback states the what. You need both, definitely, right? Because the truth is that many times it's been said in performance management that it's very easy to miss out on critical elements if it is only the quantitative methods. It's like using only qualitative means of data gathering. Only the quantitative, numerical ones is very likely for certain insights to be missed because one is using only the quantitative metric. So definitely, we are not going back on that. You are going to capture both, but even the qualitative feedback, like we said on one of these episodes, should be quantified as much as possible, right? So if, for instance, you're talking about the number of times that a particular employee has different, for instance, either direct reports or even his or her line managers. If you want to look at the number of times in the qualitative feedback, those roles, either direct reports or the line managers or different line managers that interact with that employee is complaining or they are complaining, and you find a number of times a particular word recurring more than a certain number of times in the qualitative feedback. You see, this is how you quantify even the qualitative feedback. If a certain word is recurring more than X number of times, then you can quantify that qualitative feedback, and technology helps you to do that, especially when you have set the limit. If you have preset the metrics to say, okay, this certain, whenever a certain word is occurring more than 5 times, the technology should flag it so that you can dig further into it as a unit, as a strategic HR department, or even at the national level, depending on the employee's level of seniority. You want to dig deep and say, why is this word occurring more than X number of times, right? Those are things to, at the minimum, we want to investigate it. So coming to connecting a strategic evaluation process, right? The evaluation of the strategic objectives with the evaluation of the performance objectives. Like we said, the first thing is to make sure that you're connecting the performance goals with the strategic goals, with the relevant strategic goals, right? There'll be different performance goals for different roles, different units, and so on and so forth. And there should be few and defined strategic goals at the level of the organization. Now, those goals should be connected as much as possible to the performance goals should be connected as much as possible to the relevant strategic goals. But that's why we talked about that connection process last week. Very, very important. Once again, I want to enjoy you to kindly go back and listen if you are yet to listen, because planning serves as the foundation for monitoring and also for evaluation, right? It serves as the foundation for monitoring and also evaluation. So in that planning process, once you have, like I said last week, once you have ensured that the appropriate performance goals are connected to the appropriate strategic goals at the level of the organization, right? When it comes to the evaluation, it is the appropriate, it is the corresponding performance goals that should be measured together with a strategic objective. And technology should also enable this and also flag discrepancies. I would give a quick example of the discrepancy, and then we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. So let's imagine that you set a strategic objective to grow your customer base by, for instance, 200, right? You want to have 200 high net worth customers at the end of a performance period. And that strategic goal already is defined in terms of numerical terms. The quantitative metric is clearly set. And you have, let's say, 5 departments responsible for that growth in different contexts, right? when I say different context, different weights are assigned to them, like we said last week. The sales department, of course, will probably have the overriding responsibility, and maybe they are supposed to bring in, let's say, 120 customers, and the other departments are supposed to bring in a total of 80 customers. And all of these departments, these 5 departments, for instance, scored, let's say, 4 out of 4, 4 over 4. Let's say they meet their targets, but at the strategic level, the total number of the customers brought in is 100. Automatically, the system should flag that. The system to say the performance evaluation at the lower level is not indicating, the performance, the evaluation at the organizational level. Right? How can all the 5 departments responsible for achieving the target set of 200 new employees, how can they say they got 100% when at the level of the organization is scoring a 50%, the organization only has 100 out of the 200 new customers targeted. So automatically, when you connect the strategic management, you connect the strategic evaluation, you connect the evaluation of the strategic goals with the evaluation of performance management goals, you are more likely to be able to follow through. You are more likely, first of all, to see, like we said last week, the point of visibility. You are more likely to enhance visibility, and visibility will lead to clarity, right? Immediately, when you make that connection with technology, you know when there is, for instance, an overgrading at the lower levels, because the so-called performance is not the cumulative performance is not translating into the expected performance at the strategic level. So that way, you can easily highlight the difference. This is still for the model of communications. We're looking at translating strategic strategy into performance management with technology, and specifically this week we are looking at connecting strategic evaluation of strategy with performance evaluation of performance at lower levels of the organization using technology. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Harrogate, founded in 2008 out of a desire to build transgenerational structures for organizations, institutions, and nations. We have worked with large businesses, international development organizations, and public sector ministries and agencies. Harrogate, our uniqueness is that we do not just work for you, we work with you. For example, we do not leave you to the task after sourcing talent that will help the new hire settle into robust leadership development programs. We are technical experts in advising and supporting institutions on strategy and leadership, artificial intelligence, strategic human resource management, public sector reform, finance, audit and tax, FAT, and strategic communications. We do all this and more out of a desire to transform nations through institutions and organizations. For further inquiries, email contact at thearmorgate.org or call +234 810 999 6666 +234 807 957 4151 and +161 0504 6026 www.thearmorgate.org. Armorgate, building to endure and transforming nations through institutions and organizations.
Welcome back, and hope you're enjoying the program. Hope you're learning. And remember, we are always here to support you with this process. At Armorgate, we are always here. Armorgate Consult. We've done this for close to 2 decades. It's our strength, it's our passion. It's an area of institutional expertise and excellence for us. We're here to help you do all of these things we're talking about, because for us, it's not just what we say, it's also what we do, and it's what we've helped other organizations do. So please reach out to us, www.thearmorgate.org. Send us a message, contact at thearmorgate.org. Reach us on any of our social media platforms, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. We're always here to respond to you, to help you, ensure that you have clear strategic plans, decisive performance management processes, and to ensure that you're following through on your organizational strategies through effective performance management processes. So once again, remember, there are 2 key areas we have highlighted on the program thus far. One, connecting the evaluation of your strategy, the evaluation of performance goals with the performance objectives that should have derived from the corresponding strategic goal. Very, very, very important. Like we said last week, we're still saying now, those goals may not be the same name, especially at the performance management level, which is the lower level of the organization, because a strategic goal set at a higher level of the organization will translate into different performance goals across different departments, right? Each department will look at the parts that it has to supply. It's like looking at an entire body. The role of the hand is different from the role of the neck. The role of the neck is different from the role of the leg. But ultimately, when you have a functioning body, it means that each part is supplying and playing its own role. So if the goal is to say, I'm going to reduce, for instance, my blood pressure by this or by that, right? The role of your head is different from the role of your leg, but ultimately it is the same strategic goal for the entire body, but translated into different things for different parts of the body. Sometimes it means you have to check your eyes and make sure that you are wearing it out less, ensure. Sometimes for your hand, it probably means that you have to ensure that there's effective body flow. For your legs, it probably means that you're taking more work, and so on and so forth. But all of this together will accumulate into the goal of reducing your blood pressure by a certain degree. In the same way, that strategic goal, like I said, the strategic goal of the organization will translate into different performance goals for different departments, for different divisions, for different units, for different individual roles. However, they must still be connected. That connection is critical, right? They must still be connected with the overall strategic goal, the corresponding strategic goal, right? So when it comes to the measurements too, the different parts they should have supplied to the overall to the fulfillment of the overall strategic objective, the different parts they should have played should also be measured vis-a-vis the organization's progress in that corresponding strategic goal. So the leg cannot say, I've done my part, and the hand says it has done its part, and all the body parts say it's done its part in contributing to reduce blood pressure. But blood pressure is not yet reduced. Obviously, something is disconnected there. So it's important to bring that connection. Now, the second thing we've said, of course, is also that when we're making that connection, you also use technology to bring visibility. Very, very, very important, right? Visibility will help you to know where the connection is well done, where the connection is not well done, and you can, in terms of the performance evaluation as well, right? When you bring that visibility, we look at this performance score is connected to this performance evaluation score is connected to this strategic objective score. Now, remember, we are now talking about the evaluation, right? You also want to try your best to bring that visibility as an organization. And what does visibility do? It helps to bring insights, right? The more the visibility, the more the insight, and the insights will help you to address whatever may have gone on. I want to say something quickly about the essence of performance evaluation and the essence of all of these visibility. The reason you do performance evaluation is not just to be punitive, it's also to be corrective, right? And that's why we talked about the R of the primer cycle standing for revision. Very, very important. We are not doing the performance evaluation just to be punitive, even though sometimes leaders have to be decisive, but the essence is not just to be punitive, the essence is to bring appropriate modifications, right? Because sometimes the challenge has been that when all of this performance evaluation data is gathered, sometimes organizations do not inculcate it into the broad framework of decision making, especially at the organizational level, right? The reason why you need to connect performance evaluation with strategy evaluation and revision is because you are supposed to use the feedback from the performance evaluation to inform the next cycle of strategic planning. I say that again. The reason why it is important to connect the feedback from performance evaluation at the lower levels of the organization to the evaluation of strategic objectives at the higher level of the organization is because you are supposed to use all of the feedback, all the performance evaluation data gathered to inform the next strategic planning cycle. Hence the reason why the R of the Amongate strategic management cycle stands for revision, right? If you get all of that performance evaluation information and you're not using it to improve your strategy process, either your strategic planning process or your strategy implementation process, then you are not, fulfilling the objective of having either a strategic management process or performance management process, and especially a strategic management process that is linked to the performance management process. Now, how do you use technology to make these necessary revisions, right? Again, technology helps because you can set your frameworks like the ASEP software, Global Strategy Application Implementation Framework software. You can set your technological tools to compare a performance period with another performance period, to compare specific themes in this quarter, for instance, with the same thing in the next quarter. You can set your technological tools to compare different themes across the quarter. Now, what does this do? It helps you, like we said, to identify within the broader frame, to put the performance evaluation information within the broader frame of the organizational strategy framework to see where the issues may be, right? For instance, if the performance evaluation information or performance evaluation data for a particular department is significantly poor in one region but better in every other region, it helps you to know that, okay, this region, we have to check its relevance to the overall organizational goals, because if this region is where the particular challenge is, if it's very relevant to the overall organizational goals, we know we need to strengthen it. It's challenge leadership, then we dig further, right? But if this region is not that critical, you also want to consider maybe removing that department or that function in that particular region. At the minimum, it helps you to, like we said, make the necessary strategy revisions. That's how to connect the performance evaluation to the strategy evaluation. It's through the revision. Very, 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 very important. The whole essence of doing the performance evaluation and the strategy evaluation is to make necessary revisions, especially at the strategic level. The performance management information, the strategy evaluation part of it, is supposed to give you, an insight, an oversight, in fact, or supposed to help you with your oversight, because at the strategic level, you are supposed to be having oversight, right? But that performance evaluation information gives you insight at different levels, a broad insight, and also at depth, right? That's why it's an insight. You are seeing inside the issues to say, where are the challenges? Where are the challenges connected to different strategic goals? Where are the performance evaluation or which units or departments are challenging the implementation of these strategic goals the most? If we have given a particular strategic goal to 5 departments or 4 departments, which of those 4 departments is contributing the most from the performance evaluation data? If you have given it to 4 regions, which of those 4 regions is contributing the most, which is contributing the least? All of this helps you to take the appropriate strategy revision decisions. Please don't ever forget this. The whole essence of getting the performance evaluation data from the lower levels of the organization and connecting it with the strategy evaluation at the higher levels of the organization is to make the necessary strategy revision. I'm going to say that again. The whole essence of connecting the performance evaluation at the lower levels of the organization with the strategy evaluation at the higher levels of the organization is to make the necessary strategy revision. Wow, I think this is where we're going to stop on today's edition of the program. Today we've looked at connecting performance evaluation with strategy evaluation using technology. We've talked about the fact that technology can help you to easily see the comparison between the corresponding performance goals and the strategic objectives. Very, very, very important, because you want to make sure you are matching, even in comparing the performance evaluation results with the strategic objective outcomes. You want to make sure you are matching the appropriate performance goals with the corresponding strategic objectives. Very, very important. That's the first thing. Technology helps you to quickly make that connection, helps you to also flag it when it's mismatched. Very important, right? How does technology help you to see the mismatch? Because you will have preset certain indicators to quickly show you when there's a mismatch. It could be like once we don't see these words, once we don't see these terminologies, and so on and so forth, there is a mismatch. Many of these things should have been preset into a technological tool, and that way we can flag it when there's a mismatch. Very important. Number 2, the metrics that were set at the beginning of the performance period should serve as the basis for evaluating at the end of the performance period, both at the lower levels of the organization and at the higher strategic levels of the organization. Technology, of course, makes those connections again and helps you compare. Number three, technology looks at the cumulative, performance goals, so to say, especially the performance, the said cumulative performance outputs, right, at the lower levels of the organization, and see whether it correlates with strategic outcomes at the higher levels of the organization, right? So the lower level of the organization cannot be saying they did well in sales. All of them cannot be saying they did well in sales. And at the higher level of the organization is stagnant in its strategic outcomes in terms of increased customer base or customer revenue. And finally, of course, we also talk about the need to ensure that performance evaluation, the performance evaluation information serves as basis of strategy evaluation and revision. Very, very important. Knowing what to revise and how to revise is what the performance evaluation data should inform. Technology, of course, making that connection. How does technology make the connection? It facilitates visibility. Visibility enhances clarity. It becomes easier to quickly see and clearly see exactly which departments have contributed the most to a strategic objective of those that should have contributed to it, which regions have contributed the most, which units have contributed or the least, depending on whether it's a positive or negative one. In other words, technology would enhance visibility of the different performance contributions at the lower levels to the strategic outcomes, the expected strategic outcomes. That way, making way for prompt and effective and accurate strategy revision, because the whole essence of performance evaluation and strategy evaluation is strategy revision, so that you don't keep doing the same things the same way when they are not working and expecting a different result. Wow. Thank you very much again for joining us for today's edition of the program. My name is Toromoga. I'm going to be ready communications. We'll be back same time. I will be back same time, same station next week by Thursday. And so then my colleagues will be here for the rest of the week, bringing you rich and robust insights across a wide range of issues, from economic to political to entrepreneurial and so on and so forth. Right? Until I see you same time, same station next week. Remember, do not just think strategy evaluation and performance evaluation. Also think performance evaluation and strategy evaluation for strategy revision where and when necessary. Thank you so much, and have a good day.